What's going on, my fellow watch ladies and gentlemen? For today's episode, let's talk about one of my passions within the watch collecting hobby, which is metal G-Shocks. As I've said many times before, metal is king, and when you pair that with a prestige level watch brand like G-Shock, then the only word you can use to describe it is epic. So let's take a look at these epic watches that I have in my collection and simply enjoy some watches that don't give a crap about how much they weigh. A surprisingly often overlooked G-Shock, the GST S110 G-Steel is a fantastic everyday watch that provides a fusion between business casual and brute force. The case is almost a 50-50 mixture of resin and steel. However, I feel that it provides the wearer all the shock resistance of resin without losing any of the armor coating that steel can provide. If you're a fan of the 9400 Rangeman aesthetic, then you're going to love the 4 bezel screws that add to the tool-like design. The evenly brushed lines on the outer finishing makes it seem like there's a machine sitting on your wrist. And that feeling is made only more apparent when you see the 3 sub-displays on the dial, which seem to act like performance monitoring gauges you would see on some kind of control panel. Speaking of performance, the G-Steel is one of the few Ana-Digi watches that does illumination the only way that makes sense, with a LED to light up the hands, a backlight to light up the digital screens, and a great lume for 3 layers of redundancy. The light is powered by a solar battery, making this a truly worry-free powerhouse of a watch. There are several variations of the G-Steel, but I feel that this color scheme is the best, and one that you should be adding to your shopping cart if you haven't done so already. Throwing in a bit of a classic in the mix, the 3110 may not be your grandfather's watch, but your 40-year-old uncle definitely enjoyed this a few decades ago. When this watch came out is when I think the last great generation of G-Shocks existed. You could find budget-friendly metal G-Shocks at your neighborhood Walmart, and the designs were true to your typical G-Shock DNA more so than the hip and cool styles of today. I consider the 3110 to be the older relative to the MTG M900, and while both watches are great, I gotta say that I prefer the 3110 more. Call me biased, but I wore the crap out of one going through high school, and it kinda set the tone for my obsession with metal Gs. Not even with the case material, but the pointless function of being able to change the display color made the 3110 the kind of watch that reminded you that we didn't always have smartphones to keep us entertained. Back then, we had to actually go out and talk to people, and one way to express ourselves was to have that color changing feature. It goes without saying that the integrated bull bars are also fantastic, if not just to give it a wonderfully fun look. I feel like these watches are an obvious choice and don't even really need to be discussed because they are the quintessential G-Shock in any category. I will say that the addition of these watches into the catalog is indicative that the watch community as a whole is obsessed with metal watches, even if it's in varying levels of intensity. They took their most popular G-Shock and metalized it because they knew that's what we wanted, and that gives me solace knowing that the metal digital watch is far from going extinct. Going back to the watch itself, it's a timeless design and one that transcends all classes and tastes. Whether you're a broke college student playing the guitar on the sidewalk or a billionaire, chances are if you're into watches, then you are a fan of the square. And what's not to like? It's retro yet futuristic, modest yet stylish, and simple yet almost achieves digital perfection. It is prestige level within the prestige class and one that could easily become a permanent member in your watch rotation. If you're not a fan of the price, then take a regular 5610 and turn it into a metal square at less than half the cost. In some ways, I think my metal 5610 is superior to my B5000s because it's got a touch of my personal style. The sky's the limit with the square, and when you add metal into the picture, it's an unbeatable combination. This is a revival of the first Anadigi G ever made, and another reminder that metal is here to stay for the indefinite future for G-Shock. I must confess that I had put this one up for sale simply because it was not getting any wrist time. However, I'm glad no one bought it. You see, when you put up a watch for sale, it forces you to pick it up, take pictures of it, mess around with it, and all the while those actions can rekindle the forgotten excitement you once had. And that's exactly what happened with me. Every day I didn't receive an offer was another day I would sit at my desk and mess around with it, and I was quickly reminded why I bought it in the first place. You've got the high style of a B5000 square with the machine-like feel of the G steel, all enclosed in this dense, compact package of tight tolerances, and the quality just kind of smacks you in the face. The sunburst dial and brushed indices give a very professional look, while the sporty, hollowed out hands reminds you that it's still a G-Shock and it's got some attitude. As you can see, the finishing is beautiful, but the unnoticed star of the show is the DLC coated caseback that bumps up the AWM 500 to another level. I will admit that, like the B5000, it's a bit overpriced, but that's the price you gotta pay for prestige level watches. This might be a surprising choice because you don't normally associate the Frogman with metal, but the reason why I do is because despite the resin exterior, the Frogman is very much a metal watch. In fact, it's quite impressive to see a naked Frogman because it's pretty much just a solid block of steel, which explains how ridiculously solid it feels the second you get one on wrist. It needs to be said that I'm specifically only talking about the digital Frogman and not the new analog Frogman, which in my opinion can get tossed into a volcano never to return again.
Cast it into the fire! Destroy it!
No. Call me old-fashioned, but I just hate seeing the next generation of frogs turning into carbon core, weight-saving analog watches. I feel like they could have made the same exact watch and just called it a different name, but I'm gonna save those thoughts for later. Getting back to the older, more awesome frogs, there's a reason why I'm so passionate about preserving their roots, because these are quite possibly the best quality G-Shocks you're ever going to experience. And that experience heavily relies on the fact that the case is all metal, making it seem almost like a monocoque watch. Out of all the watches we've discussed so far, the GWF 1000 Frogman is without a doubt number one on my list if I had to make a list. Last but not least, this is sort of like my first quote-unquote luxury G-Shock. Yeah, I know it's not a luxury watch, but these newer MTGs and MRGs are considered to be the premium level of G-Shocks. So just to oversimplify things, I call it my luxury G. I will say that the premium feel is definitely there with the sapphire crystal and Zaratsu polishing on the case. The polishing adds a beautiful shine that borders the line of being delicate. But then that delicate feel quickly fades when you see the 4 hex head bezel screws, which then shows that this watch means serious business. The knurled crown also adds to that serious look and elicits the same emotions I feel when looking at a German sports car. I think when it comes to metal G-Shocks in my collection, this B1000 is the most tastefully done, and one that I would recommend if you're wanting to have one foot in the boardroom and the other out in the field. So that pretty much concludes today's episode. Of course, my obsession is never ending, which means that my collection is also never ending. So as it grows and as I accumulate more metal G-Shocks, of course I will do more episodes like this. So let me know what you think. This really wasn't meant to focus on features or functions. It was really just to talk about and enjoy these metal watches. And I hope that a lot of you share the same passion as I have for metal G-Shocks or metal digital watches in general. But anyways, that's all I gotta say. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I always have a blast making them. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Bye.